All right, so now, once again, what we're going to do is we're going to go a new standard part file. Once this comes up, it looks just the same as what it did before, but however, your bar up here on the top has changed. What do you think the first thing might be that you do? Place. Very good. So go up there to the top left corner and click on place. It may or may not, mine does not do it because I've been in a lot of directories. It may go to your correct directory already. If it doesn't, you have to go to your directory of where you just saved your stuff to. So I'm going to make it to my directory here. Practice folder, there we go. All right, we are going to place block 2 first. That's going to be kind of our base piece. So we're going to go block 2 and go open. And we're going to place block 2 there. If you just click on the screen, it'll place it. If you continue to click on the screen, it'll place a ton of them. We really don't want that many. We only want one. But later on other things, you won't be placing more than one. So I'm going to show you that. So we do want to get back to where we're just one block in there. And there's your block placed. Now, several versions of Inventor ago, like 3 versions ago, it always used to, that first block you placed in, it would lock it into place so it couldn't be moved. It's called grounding. It doesn't do it anymore. So now if you click and hold on this, you can slide this block all around, which isn't a good thing, I don't think. I don't know why they got rid of it, but they did. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and ground this. So to do that, you click on your block, and then right-click on your block, and go down and click on grounding. Put a check mark on grounding. Now, if you click on your block and try to move it, notice it gives you a little thumbtack on there, saying your block's locked into place and it won't move. You just have to click on it, highlight it, ground it. As look up here at my screen. It's down about 2/3 of the way down the list. It says grounded. Starts with a G and ends with a D. So now, listen. Now what this does is, when we go and start constraining other parts to this, this part won't move. It's locked into place. If multiple parts move around on your screen, it really starts to kind of get confusing and can really mess with you. So having the first part grounded is handy. We're going to go ahead and go place again. We're going to place our other block, which is block 1, and put that in there, just somewhere over there to the side. Okay, so what we're going to do now is much like what we have been constraining sketches before, now we're going to start constraining these parts together, which basically means you're going to lock them into place so they can't move. When you're in a sketch, you constrain it and it turns it full blue. Here, you're just going to constrain it so your parts don't slide around. So, to do that, I want this block to go into the slot of this block here. So I'm going to start with going constrain. And we're going to look at some of these options of constrain here. Constrain has a bunch of options to it. So first off, if I hover over this first option that's highlighted, that's called a mate constraint. A mate constraint, you have 2 different options on mate. You have mate, and mate flush. So, take your 2 hands in front of you. Clap your hands together. That is a mate. You just mated your 2 hands together. Now take your 2 hands and unfold them like a book, so they're flat. Now the tops of your hands are flush to each other. So notice how mine are, those are flush. So that's the difference, mate, and mate flush. This is what you're going to use 80% of the time. We really don't get into that complex of assemblies this year in Inventor. So this is what you're going to use 80% of the time, are mate, and mate flush. Let's go ahead and look at some of the others just so you know what those are. This next tab over, if you click on it, it's called the angular constraint, those angular ones. There's 3 different options for angular. Next, you have tangent constraints. There's 2 different options of tangents. Next, you have an insertion constraint used on circular parts where you're inserting a bolt into a hole or something like that. And then the next one, you have a symmetric constraint. And honestly, this is a kind of a new one in the last 3 or 4 versions. I wasn't taught on this one or didn't learn how to use Inventor on this one. So I never have used this one. I've never found a need for it. I always find another way of doing things instead of doing the symmetric one. But you know, that's just me because of the way I use Inventor. So let's go ahead and go back to our mate constraint. And now I have the mate highlighted. Notice this one's highlighted in blue also. So I am now on a mate constraint. What I want to do is I want to mate the top surface of this. So notice it gives me a little arrow on it. So I'm going to click on that. And I want to mate it to the bottom of the slot over here. I'm going to click there. If you have sound on, it makes a little donk noise. And I'm going to go ahead and go apply. So now I just made that to there. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'm going to do one at a time. We're going to kind of look at them. So now, if I click on my red block, your block is probably a different color. Notice it moves around. So here you might think, okay, here I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to move it off that top surface. So there I just slid that and lifted it straight up. But if I rotate this around a little bit, did I actually move that straight up? I actually slid it to the side because no matter how I move this thing, it is now mated to that surface. It will not come off of that surface. It only slides side to side, forward and backward. It will not move off of that surface. Okay? So that was my first one. Remember, once you twist things around, if you hit F6, it puts it back there in that normal orientation. All right. So now, I'm going to move this block around a little bit so it's not quite right on top. It's over here to the side a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and go constrain again. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the mate again. This time I'm going to mate this side here. And I could spin the block around and mate it to this side here next to me, but I'm going to go ahead. It's easier just to mate it to this one. So it's going to spin my block 180 degrees and mate it over there. So I clicked on this surface and now this surface right back here. And apply. Once again, I'm going to close it out. And now we're going to look to see what I've got done now. Now notice it's constrained. If you look at my X, Y, and Z coordinates, it's now constrained in the X. I can't move it in the X. It's now constrained in the Y. I can't move it up in the Y. All I'm doing is sliding it back and forth in the Z. That makes sense to everybody? Everybody seeing that? Yep. All right, I'm going to undo. All right. So now what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to go ahead and actually, I did this backwards. Actually, everybody go ahead and undo. I messed up. Everybody go ahead and undo. Undo back to where it's here, and Control Z will undo it, or you can just hit your back arrow. I'm going to go constrain, and I did it wrong. I wanted this long side here. So go ahead and actually constrain this long side here to this side here. And it's just, again, it's just a mate. And apply that. Yeah. And so now that thing is constrained in there, again, and everything except for the Z direction. It slides back and forth in the Z. Okay, so now I want to do one more constraint. I'm going to do a flush constraint. And I'm going to let you guys handle the flush constraint. To make it look like that. Alright, if you didn't get that one on your own, that is constrain. I switch to a flush constraint. And I flush this end of the red block to this end of the pink block. And I flush those two surfaces. Apply that and close it out. And now that thing is locked into place and will not move. Alright, now the thing we got to look at is, alright, the person that designed this block, how'd they do? How do these two blocks fit together? They don't fit together so well. But this is the coolest, most powerful part of Inventor. This is why Inventor was made, is because of this part and how this works and how well this works to fix things when mistakes are made. These two parts don't fit together. Well, let's say we did this part last week, and now we're assembling it together, and we don't remember how wide this slot is. What you can do is you can use a command called the measure command. So to use this measure command, you just hit M for measure. And I'm going to come up here, and I want to measure the length of this slot here. So this line right here. So I'm going to hover over it until that white line appears there. I'm going to click on that slot. And I'm going to find out that slot is 1.5 inches wide. If you did yours correctly. So that slot is 1.5 inches wide. So this width of the block, I need to change to 1.5 inches. So we're going to go back to my block 1. Was it in the extrusion or the sketch of that where I changed that? It was in the sketch. So I have to come up here, I have to click on the little arrow beside the extrusion to open up the sketch. Then double click on the sketch. This 2-inch dimension I need to change to what? Now, let me ask a question though. If you have a 1.5 inch block, will a 1.5 inch block fit into a 1.5 inch slot and fit there loosely? No, it won't. It'll fit tight. It's the exact same size. So we're actually going to add a tolerance in this. We're going to make it 0.005 of an inch smaller. So we're actually going to make this 1.495. That's 0.005 of an inch smaller. little bit of a gap. We're going to hit our check mark, go OK, we're going to go finish sketch, and we're going to go ahead and go back to our assembly. Now, in our assembly, it changed the size of the block, but it still doesn't fit there quite right. The reason is because up here on this top line, right beside the little home, you see this sheet of paper with a lightning bolt on it? It's called local update. It didn't update this one yet. So you have to click on that button to make it update this one. And now look how nicely that fits in there. So by updating the sketch, it automatically updated this drawing also, or this assembly. If you look at it closely, here on this side, you can see there is my 5/1000th of an inch gap, where I have a little tiny bit of a gap where it doesn't quite fit in there totally tight, has a little tiny bit of a tolerance there in it, and that's good. All right, so what I want you to do now is I want you to resize this block so it fits correctly in the length in this direction and also correctly in the height. Now here you're not fitting in between two things, so you don't have to put any tolerances to them. So you need to measure the height of this slot if you don't remember how tall this slot was, and you have to measure the width of this block and change those two things on part one, come back, update it, and let's see how you do. I'm going to let you do that on your own. All right, so now, if you don't have this done, here's what we do. You got to keep it down out there, though, so your voices aren't on the video and mine is. So to do this is, first I'm going to see how long I need it in this direction. So I'm going to measure because I forget. I'm going to measure this line. And that line, it's 2 inches long. So I need it 2 inches in that dimension. I'm going to go back to my block 1. I need it 2 inches in that dimension. That's going to be in my sketch. I'm going to double click on my sketch, and I'm going to change this 3-inch dimension down to a 2-inch dimension. I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to do it one step at a time. I'm going to go back to my assembly, update my assembly, and look how nicely that fits. But now I am, however, still sticking out of the slot. So once again, I'm going to measure. Because I forget how deep this slot was, I'm going to measure that line there. It's 1/4 of an inch. So once again, I'm going to go back to block 1. This time it's not in my sketch. It's under my extrusion. Hopefully you all figured that out. Most of you did because I saw you're done out there. I'm going to double click on the extrusion. And I'm going to change it to a 1/4 inch extrusion instead of a 1/2 inch. Go OK. Go back to my assembly. Once again, update it. And there it is. Beautiful. Fitting in there as an amazing block. All right. So now with that, you are going to save that. So go to File and Save. Now you might think, what? None of my other drawings are there. Actually, they are. This just happens to be your first assembly you've saved. So we're just going to call this Block Assembly. And save it. It's going to come up with this message. Right now, you've got a pretty simple drawing we just worked on, so there really aren't any other changes. But your common answer here would be yes to all, that you save the changes to all of them and go OK. And there you go. That is saved there, and that is nicely done. All right. That's it for that. Our next thing is going to be on page 81, a page of infamy in your hardback books. And flip it over there, and we're going to take a look at that.